The Chinese Communist regime is hinting it could withhold face masks and medical supplies from the US as a form of leverage. Citizens inside the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak are outraged as meat is delivered in garbage trucks and ambulances. China has been boasting its success at bringing the economy back to normal. Is everything really going well like they say, or is there a bigger crisis ahead? Our in-house expert explains. President Trump has formally declared a national state of emergency in the US. This frees up $50 billion to help combat the coronavirus. The Chinese regime accuses the US of bringing the virus into China. President Trump responds today.
Welcome to China in Focus. I'm your host, Tiffany Meyer. Over a month since the coronavirus whistleblower Dr. Li Wenliang died, his last post on Weibo is still going strong. According to Apple Daily, as of Friday afternoon, the viral post is still up with over 2.6 million likes and nearly 600,000 comments and 160,000 reposts. Li Wenliang was silenced by authorities for trying to warn others about what he called a new SARS-like coronavirus, and then later died of the virus. His last post is from February 1st and shows he was still hopeful about his diagnosis. He wrote that the nucleic acid test result is positive. He died 6 days later. The comments are still coming in at around the speed of one message per minute. Many netizens are expressing their sympathy for Li Wenliang or praising him for his disclosing of the epidemic. Now to Wuhan, the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak. Residents expressing outrage after local authorities of the regime delivered meat and other foods using garbage trucks and even ambulances. Many expressed their grievances to our reporters that the garbage trucks were dirty and the ambulances could carry the virus. Another citizen told us it would be better if authorities gave the people allowances and let them buy their own necessities instead of sending loads of meat to everyone. And as the coronavirus spreads around the world, the hunt for patient zero continues. On Friday, a new internal document from the Chinese Communist regime reveals the novel coronavirus appeared much earlier than officially announced. According to Hong Kong-based media, unpublished documents from the Chinese Communist regime reveal a 55-year-old Wuhan patient suffering from what's now known as the novel coronavirus as early as November 17th last year. It's not clear if he is patient zero, but so far there are no records of earlier cases. The report also revealed starting from that date, there were 1 to 5 new cases each day. By December 15th, the total number of infection was at 27. By December 20th, that number had reached 60. That's in sharp contrast to what the world knows as the first case. According to the World Health Organization, the first recorded case in China was on December 8th. And according to medical journal The Lancet, the first patient in a hospital in Wuhan treated for the coronavirus was on December 1st. So what about the patients who have recovered from the coronavirus? A new study by Hong Kong hospital doctors found that recovered coronavirus patients can be left with substantially weakened lungs. The doctors studied the first batch of recovered coronavirus patients in Hong Kong. Out of the 12 people in the group, around 20 to 30% had a drop in lung function. These patients were left gasping for air if they walked too fast. The doctors added that the long-term effects cannot be determined at this time. In new efforts to combat the coronavirus, U.S. health officials announced a coronavirus test that will speed up the process by 10 times. The Food and Drug Administration approved emergency use of the test, which runs on the Cobas 8800 and 6800 systems and has a testing capacity of over 4,000 patients a day. The machines can provide test results in 4 hours, which is 10 times faster than the current ones. This can be a vital tool in helping stem the flow of the coronavirus, as it allows health workers to identify and quarantine patients a lot faster than before. And now globally, Iran is the hardest hit country in the Middle East, with over 11,000 cases and more than 500 deaths. But some are questioning the official figures, saying it could be much higher. According to The Guardian, satellite images reveal a large number of tunnels dug into a large cemetery in the Iranian city of Qom. Comparing different satellite images, the cemetery was unused in October, but by early March this year, much of it was filled up. Some scholars are pointing out these new tombs could be used to conceal coronavirus deaths. In France, the Prime Minister took drastic measures to curb the coronavirus epidemic, banning all gatherings of more than 100 people. Following the announcement, many monuments set to close on Friday, including the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre Museum, and others. Many visitors are left to peer through closed entrances, hoping for a glimpse of the famous paintings within. And French President Emmanuel Macron announced Thursday night all schools and universities would be closed until further notice, calling the coronavirus epidemic the worst health crisis the country has experienced in a century. And the UK announced today elections will be pushed back for a year amid the coronavirus pandemic. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in self-isolation after his wife tested positive for the coronavirus. Australian Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton tests positive for the coronavirus. And Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who was recently in the U.S. and met with President Trump, has tested negative for the coronavirus, reversing earlier reports. And we previously reported on a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman suggesting the U.S. military brought the coronavirus to Wuhan. Zhao Lijiang tweeted from his official account that it might be the U.S. Army who brought the epidemic to Wuhan. He asked the U.S. to, quote, be transparent, make public your data, saying U.S. owes us an explanation. Today, after President Trump held a press conference on the coronavirus, a reporter asked Trump about questions surrounding the source of the virus.
And they know where it came from. We all know where it came from.
Chinese authorities have been pushing companies back to work, and state media are saying things are back to normal. But experts say there might be a bigger crisis ahead. NTD's Juliet Song has the details.
Merchants in several regions in China are taking to the streets asking for their rent to be refunded or reduced. They went back to work under orders from the Chinese authorities, but an expert says the protest is a sign that small businesses in China are struggling to survive. Even though authorities claim the outbreak outside Hubei has been contained, many people still don't dare to go out into the streets. Consumer demands are down and businesses are suffering.
It's very hard for service industries such as restaurants and barbershops to survive in a situation like this. They have no income. At the same time, Chinese authorities require them to continue operation, and they have to shoulder all the costs, including labor and rent.
Small to medium-scale business make up 90% of enterprises in China, yet they don't get much aid from the communist regime. Qin said with the trade war, the burden of cost and the coronavirus outbreak not contained, small businesses in China are facing bigger trouble, which could lead to an economic crisis.
Actually, it's already happening. Next, we'll see many small to medium businesses closing on a large scale. Many people will lose their jobs. It may lead to China slipping into a debt crisis. Enterprises that can't pay the debts they owe to the banks and their clients will trigger a chain reaction.
Qin said once China is in a debt crisis, the chain reaction may impact international markets. Many international companies invested in China's real estate and state-owned enterprises could see no returns. Reporting by Juliet Song, NTD News, New York.
President Trump has formally declared a national emergency in the U.S. The declaration opens access to up to $50 billion to help combat the virus and speed up testing.
Today, I am officially declaring a national emergency.
The United States is now under a national emergency. The rarely used action allows for up to $50 billion in funding set aside by Congress to be provided for disaster relief. Effective immediately, the president urged every state to set up emergency operations centers. He also asked that every hospital in the country activate their emergency preparedness plan. Trump explained that the emergency orders also allow the Secretary of Health and Human Services to waive certain restrictions to give greater flexibility to doctors, hospitals, and healthcare centers.
We'll remove or eliminate every obstacle necessary to deliver our people the care that they need and that they're entitled to. No resource will be spared, nothing whatsoever.
The president also announced a new partnership with the private sector to allow for greater availability and speed of virus testing. Now stores and pharmacies like Walmart, Target, CVS, and Walgreens will provide drive-through services where people can get tested from the comfort of their own cars. At the same time, Google is developing a website to help people individually determine if a test is needed.
Again, we don't want everybody taking this test. It's totally unnecessary. And this will pass. This will pass through, and we're going to be even stronger for it.
President Trump says he expects 500,000 additional tests will be available early next week and will likely announce testing locations on Sunday night.
Congress has already approved $8.3 billion in funding, but it's still unclear how it will be spent. Nancy Pelosi today announcing a new proposal.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says the Democrat-controlled chamber will pass a coronavirus economic aid package today, but it will still need approval from the Senate and the President. It's unclear if they'll approve. Pelosi calls it the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Under the proposal, virus testing will be accessible and free for everyone.
The three most important parts of this bill are testing, testing, testing.
Also, if you are affected by the virus, you'll get 2 weeks of paid sick leave. Your company will pay you, and the government will reimburse them for it. President Trump has asked Congress to include an income tax cut. This would leave more money in American workers' pockets and reduce their financial burden. Trump says, if you want to get money into the hands of people quickly and efficiently, let them have the full money that they earned. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell thanked the Trump administration and the House of Representatives for working together. He says the Senate will stay open next week to consider it, canceling its scheduled recess.
Is the Chinese regime preparing to blackmail the U.S. over pharmaceuticals? The Communist Party is hinting it could withhold face masks and medical supplies from the U.S. as a form of leverage on other issues. The coronavirus pandemic is highlighting America's deep dependence on China for medical supplies.
President Trump is expected to announce a new executive order to ensure medical supplies and pharmaceuticals are made in America. This in response to coronavirus medical shortages. The U.S. depends on China for medical supplies. Chinese state media, run by the authoritarian regime, hinted at withholding necessary medical supplies from the U.S., likely over recent U.S. actions to restrict market access to Chinese telecommunications company Huawei. When the virus emerged as an epidemic in China, dependency on overseas production and supply chains posed a threat to U.S. economic stability, but it also threatens national security. A senior advisor at a bioethics research institute said the U.S. is dramatically dependent on China for medical supplies, including prescription drugs. As much as 90% of what goes into them comes from China, and medication is crucial for many people. Shortages of antibiotics, masks, and gowns would also seriously impact hospitals. One senior advisor at the Hastings Center, a bioethics research institute, described dependency on China as a huge risk. This is not only due to the pandemic, but also should the communist regime choose to exert its control over dependent countries, like the U.S. Senator Marco Rubio said in a statement, the coronavirus outbreak has been a wake-up call that we must combat America's supply chain vulnerabilities and dependence on China in critical sectors of our economy.
Amid the disruption caused by the coronavirus outbreak in China, companies are forced to remodel their supply chain and re-examine their reliance on the world's factory.
The coronavirus outbreak has dealt a shock to businesses around the world as companies scramble to find parts, even sending those parts by plane. They are pushed to move their supply chains and rethink their risk management and dependence on China.
If it doesn't start returning to normality, then yes, it will have an impact, and we are developing some alternative sourcing opportunities where we can. But you know, we don't have multiple sources for a company this size. Our volumes aren't such that you'd have dual sourcing, so we are quite dependent.
On the other hand, some companies have managed to avoid production breakdown, for example, by sourcing materials from regional suppliers. Manufacturer 3M in Minneapolis is one of them. So far, the company has avoided major supply chain disruptions and continues to produce the much-needed respirators.
Since we have this regional manufacturing model, many of our items are coming regionally, and we're working with our supply partners very closely to monitor the situation.
As one economic expert told her sister media, the Epoch Times, it's like what the old adage says, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
But what we've seen now is companies like Apple and many other companies have put all their eggs in one basket. That basket is China, that we can't gamble everything on concentrating our supply chains in a country with such shaky rule of law and really black box, opaque lack of transparency, in addition to its horrible human rights practices as communist China.
He added, what also makes a company vulnerable to supply disruptions is the just-in-time inventory system, where factories keep a lean inventory to save costs and have all the parts arrive at the plant just in time to be assembled. Ellis hopes this fallout could be a tipping point for some business leadership to rethink their global supply chain and over-reliance on China.
It's day 2 of the containment zone in New Rochelle, New York, the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak in the state. Today, authorities opened the area's first drive-through coronavirus testing outpost. As of today, New York State has the highest confirmed cases in the U.S. 421 people are infected. That's 421 out of a state population of 20 million people.
Glen Island Park in New Rochelle, New York is now a drive-through coronavirus testing site with 6 lanes operating in a turnover of 15 minutes per car. Governor Andrew Cuomo said the site is expected to serve around 200 cars per day.
I got a phone call back yesterday, 2 days later, and I got one of the first appointments.
The tests are not open for just anyone. You have to make an appointment first. People drive into the facility, medical staff comes to the car to give the swab, then the test is sent to a lab. The testing is done and the person is contacted with the results.
It's not only faster and easier, it's also smarter and safer because you're not exposing people.
He says right now they are prioritizing New Rochelle residents. That's the area with the most dense concentration of confirmed cases. And on Thursday, Governor Cuomo thanked the vice president for his attentiveness and cooperation. He also expressed appreciation for the medical staff involved.
And it says something about their heart and their soul that is just truly beautiful. It's humanity at its best.
The drive-through site is among the first states doing it, alongside Colorado, Connecticut, Washington, and most recently, California. Melina Weiskup, NTD News, New York.
Governor Cuomo said by next week they should be able to do around 5,000 tests per day. And with Trump's latest announcement today, we can expect more states to start setting up drive-through test sites. New York City is taking measures to protect itself against the Wuhan virus. Borough presidents planning to visit stores in person this weekend to combat price gouging. And they are having city employees telecommute and are encouraging patients to use telemedicine to reduce person-to-person contact. NTD's Kevin Hogan has the story.
Will be no greater impact.
The borough presidents of New York City are finding ways to grapple with the coronavirus outbreak by reducing crowds and making sure people have access to medical supplies. The city imposing fines of up to $500 on stores for price gouging medical supplies like masks and hand sanitizer.
We know that this is very hard to come by. I went to a school auction and it went for $200, this little bottle.
And New York State introducing a bill to prevent it. The bill faults stores for upping the price of medical supplies by 10% or more from before a public health emergency is declared. Manhattan's borough president saying she won't tolerate it and justifying the city stepping in.
Sometimes people can't go to a different store. Seniors go where they are comfortable with their walker.
The borough president said they're doing everything they can to reduce crowds by having city employees telecommute and use staggered work schedules. This is to reduce the burden on the healthcare system so that seniors and those at high risk can get the care they need. They also said that the MTA will not be shutting down. The I Am Not a Virus Twitter campaign has been used to denounce racism surrounding the virus. Queens borough president saying the virus does not discriminate and neither should we.
COVID-19 does not give anyone license to hate or attack you or treat you differently. And I think that's something that we need to call out, whether it be digitally, online, or wherever you are.
Hospitals across the country are using telemedicine more frequently to treat patients while minimizing the risk of transmission. Brooklyn Borough President is encouraging patients to visit their doctors remotely by using this simple service.
The term telemedicine is a sophisticated term for just FaceTime.
Manhattan's president says the hospital system is not currently at capacity, but adds the city doesn't have the tests necessary to know who has the virus and who doesn't. Kevin Hogan, NTD News, New York.
If New York State's price gouging bill passes, stores in violation could be fined up to $25,000. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will be in isolation for 2 weeks after his wife Sophie tested positive for the coronavirus on Thursday, and the outbreak prompted the province of Ontario to shutter schools to limit the spread.
Canadian leader Justin Trudeau will be in isolation after his wife Sophie tested positive for the coronavirus on Thursday. Sophie Gregoire Trudeau recently returned from London with what she described in a personal note as, quote, uncomfortable symptoms of the virus. An official statement said the Prime Minister himself had no symptoms but was self-isolating as a precaution, and that Trudeau, quote, will continue to fully assume his duties and will address Canadians tomorrow. Canada has reported 145 cases of the virus, 3 times what it had a week ago. 1 person in the country has died and 7 of Canada's provinces have recorded infections. British Columbia has advised against all non-essential foreign travel. It's located across the border from Washington, one of the worst-hit U.S. states, with hundreds of cases and more than 30 deaths.
Small businesses in Europe are feeling the economic impact from the coronavirus. Some might not survive, though many nations are investing billions to protect their economies. NTD's France correspondent David Vives has the story.
Can you imagine visiting a crowded museum like the Louvre or the Eiffel Tower with no queue and no crowd ahead?
Well, I've been to Paris in the past years ago, and you literally couldn't move, you know, because it's so packed. It's actually been more enjoyable because it's a lot quieter, yeah.
It could be one of the only positive effects the pandemic is having on the tourism industry. France welcomed 90 to 100 million tourists last year, and it's now the nation's most impacted sector. In this family-run hotel next to the Eiffel Tower, only 11 of 40 rooms are occupied. The number of cancellations is something Charlene Pelletier has never seen. In the manager's own words, it's a disaster.
We've drastically dropped the prices. So, for example, this room is available for about $110, where normally at this time of year it's at least $280. But it's made no difference. It's really fear which is stopping clients from coming.
For Michael Fassad, director of the World Union of Small and Medium Enterprises, the outlook isn't good.
In tourism, which includes hotels and transportation, the decrease is very important. Business owners we are working with told us they are operating at about 25% capacity compared to their usual.
European countries have announced recovery plans to support small businesses that have to stop or slow their activities. Germany and France investing billions. The French Minister of Economy said the government would invest billions to help businesses, but hasn't offered a precise number. Fassad says some businesses will likely become bankrupt before they see the money.
In France, in my opinion, 5,000 to 10,000 small businesses to bankrupt and close. Those who were already in bad situation before the coronavirus, it's very likely they won't survive.
The best hope for many of these small businesses is a recovery of their activity in April or May. Reporting by David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Here at China in Focus, we bring you first-hand information from inside China. Don't forget to subscribe for the latest updates.